Hello everyone. This is one of my favorite chess games of all time. This game has aptly been named the game of the century. It was played in 1956 between Donald Byrne and Robert James Fischer. Fischer is playing the black side in this opening, and he is thought to have been the best chess player for America. So let's go ahead and take a look at this game. c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, and Fischer is playing the Grunfeld Russian system. Bishop f4, d5, queen b3, pawn takes, queen captures, and c6. c6 is a logical move. The c-pawn had to be protected, and moving it forward allows it to be protected by another pawn, while it also allows the c-pawn to help control the center. So it's a logical move. e4 is also logical, just gaining space and looking to finish developing. Knight b d7, rook d1, knight b6, queen c5, bishop g4. The idea behind moving the bishop out here is to, of course, capture this knight to try and disrupt White's pawn structure so that his king will be less likely to castle. And that is Fischer's idea here. Bishop g5, see knight a4. This is an excellent move. Puts a question to White's queen on c5. The knight on a4 cannot be captured. If it is captured, then White will end up losing. So therefore queen a3 was played. If the knight is captured, simply knight takes e4 would win a pawn, and black is able to capture back his lost material. This bishop takes d1, capturing the rook, and now we see that black definitely has enough compensation in terms of pawns, and also by keeping White's king in the center, not to mention winning the exchange. So black definitely has enough compensation and is winning here. White's pieces are also not completely developed yet. It'd be very difficult for White to hold that position. Therefore, knight a4 is not played, and instead we see queen a3. Knight takes e3, b takes, and now knight takes on e4. Pawn on e4 was hanging after the knight on c3 was captured. So now we see bishop takes e7, and Fischer is not concerned about dropping the exchange here. This is mainly because White is still 2 moves away from castling. Black has already castled, and White's center is starting to crumble. So this attack is going to come very quickly, and it's going to be worth more than the exchange. Here we see bishop out to c4 is played. White, it's a good logical move, just trying to get the bishop out of the way in order to castle. Also possible would have been to take the exchange on f8. Black would respond by taking with the bishop, queen b3, trading off the queens, and then rook e8. Looks to have this discovered check against the king, so bishop e2 would be played to try and shelter the king. After knight takes c3, rook d2 would be played to try and hold the position together. But at this point, White is not able to castle without dropping material, and Black's attack is going to continue very quickly. This bishop is setting up a pin on the king, so the king moves over. Knight takes, rook takes, but then we see this other pin, and White is simply lost here. This attack is coming too quickly. White does not have time to catch a breath. So therefore bishop takes f8 does not work. So we see bishop out to c4. Knight takes c3. After knight takes c3, there's a couple options here. Bishop c5 was played in the actual game. Queen takes c3 could have been played. If then we would see rook f to e8, castles, rook takes e7. So at least White has the ability to castle here, but Black is certainly winning, being up by a pawn and also having the bishop pair. Not to mention we have two white pawns that are isolated and pretty weak. So black would have a very good game here. However, that is probably white's best chance. Instead we see bishop out to c5, rook f to e8, king f1, the king has to run away, and now bishop out to e6. This is a stunning queen sacrifice. White played the bishop back to c5 to try and gain a tempo on black's queen, and then maybe try to get the king out to safety. But here Fischer just offers up his queen. In the actual game, Byrne went ahead and captured the queen. Let's take a look at what happens if he doesn't capture it. If he plays something like bishop out to d3, just trying to play conservatively, making sure this bishop is defended, and keeping open the option of taking the queen. Then we will see knight to b5, queen b4, a5, queen d2, queen c7. And once again, Fischer would be up by a pawn in this endgame and have the better chances, not to mention white's pawn structure is once again in shambles. So definitely that would be good for Fischer, but would be better than the actual continuation. Let's take a look at queen to c3, or queen takes knight on c3. Then we will see queen takes c5, after white recaptures, bishop takes queen, and here we have again Bobby Fischer is up by a pawn, and once again white's pawns are very weak, so Fischer would be able to win that pretty easily. If bishop takes on e6, then we would see queen b5 check, and the continuation would be a forced checkmate, a smothered mate on e2. So that would not work out either. The other options are even worse. So let's take a look at the actual continuation in the game, accepting the sacrifice. Bishop takes c4 check, king g1 only move, knight e2 check, knight d4. The idea behind taking this pawn is to increase the scope of this dark squared bishop. Also, it does gain some more material. All of these moves are forced. King g1, a takes b6, queen has to move, queen b4, rook a4, queen takes, and now knight takes d1, simply winning more material. At this point, Fischer is up by at least a bishop. He has two rooks for the queen, so that would be an extra pawn. Fischer would be up. He has two actual extra pawns, so that would be just one extra pawn. So that would be two pawns up, and then you would have knights pair off and two bishops for the rook. So having two bishops for the rook would put Bobby Fischer up by one more pawn, and therefore he's up by about a bishop. Plus he has the attack, not to mention Fischer is winning these two extra pawns. So now he's up by closer to a rook. Rook e1, rook takes, and why not trade off? Since Bobby Fischer is up material, trading off does make sense, and it also limits white's counterplay. Bishop d5, just putting the pieces on really good squares. Knight e4, queen b8, and now Fischer is just starting to push his pawns forward. So white tries to do something, tries to come up with some type of an attack, maybe looking to place a knight here to attack the bishop, but Fischer just plays king out to g7 and stops that idea. Now white tries to get his king active, but this actually leads to checkmate. Bishop c5 check. What can white do? King f1 was played in the actual game. If king out to h2 trying to run this way, simply knight to d2 will lead to a checkmate. If king g3, knight f1, and then we get this type of checkmate. If, for instance, maybe just king out to h1, then rook a1 check, knight check, check, once again, king moves up, bishop moves over, and now there is a forced checkmate on 1, and there is no way to stop that. If queen c7, for instance, then rook h1 checkmate. So there really is no way to stop this checkmate. White tries to run this way because there is more space in the center, but Bobby Fischer sees the forced checkmate. And that is simply beautiful. A great masterpiece by Bobby Fischer. Thank you for watching this game, and stay tuned for some more brilliant games.